All right, hi everyone. This is Dave Clement, VP of Digital Operations with LSC Digital. Going to take a couple minutes today to talk about some common definitions of online marketing, more specifically search engine marketing. And I tried to pick a couple terms that are often misused, that I still see misused to this day. So once again, only take about 5 minutes, so let's get started. First, we're going to talk a little bit about what's called the SERPs. SERP. That stands for Search Engine Results Page. That's basically this. I've seen other abbreviations used for this, but SERP is Search Engine Results Pages. That's the only appropriate abbreviation for the page. So when you see somebody talk about the SERPs, that's what they're talking about. Next is SEM. And this is one that has driven me nuts for years and years and years, because SEM stands for search engine marketing. And all search engine marketing is an umbrella term for both SEO and paid search marketing, or PPC marketing. I often see search engine marketing, or SEM, used in place of SEO, and that is absolutely wrong, because SEO really stands for search engine optimization, which goes after the organic search results. So those are the results right about here. Well, anything that doesn't say ads on it, because that's a whole other thing that we'll talk a little bit more about in regards to organic search rankings, how it's getting a little bit harder to get your listings in organic results. And then we also have the paid search results. So those are everything that does say ads on them. Now you have to pay for those. So basically whoever pays the most for that keyword ranks the highest. And you typically pay per click, which is why it's called PPC, or pay per click. All right, another definition that I would like to talk about today real quickly is kind of a new term that's being used in search engine marketing. And that's the term of position zero, okay? So this is a very new term. Position zero is the information that Google offers at the very top of the search results. So that's position zero. So this is basically from structured data. So Google's pulling information in from websites. So when you do a search for how old is Jimi Hendrix, they give you 27 years, because that's basically when he died. So you don't have to go anywhere. These are not, listings basically. This is Google pulling in the information, giving you the answers before you have to go anywhere. Actual position one now is until all the way down here. So when you look at your Google rankings, position one no longer means top of the page. Position one now means, for a lot of search results, below the fold, which we'll talk a little bit more about in our next slides. So think about that. This is huge. Position zero, you address with schema. Position one is really about your content. So this is what really leads into the biggest challenge that a lot of companies are getting there's been a lot of conversation about, is what's called zero-click searches. So that's when the user no longer has to go to a website to get the answers. They can just stay right in the SERP results. So that's basically a search is done and there's 0 clicks to a website. And that's really ramped up a lot. If you noticed in our last webinar, we spent quite a bit of time on that. And as you can see, here's those organic click-through rates dropping and dropping and dropping, going from 64% of people clicking through to a website to now 59%. And it's really speeding up. If you saw on one of the other slides how hard it was to find one organic ranking. So that's zero-click searches. And then another term that's really misused quite a bit is long tail keyword. A lot of times people think that's the length of the keyword, the long tail of the keyword. But long tail keywords are really more about targeting niche demographics rather than mass audiences. So as long as you're targeting a niche, it doesn't really mean that it has to be 5 keywords long. It's just being super, super, super targeted. So the long tail really refers to the search demand curve. So as the keyword terms become more specific, like instead of widget, blue widget, the search volume becomes less competitive, but searchers' intent becomes higher because it's a more qualified search. So an example would be me doing a quick search for a restaurant near me. Now that's very broad, so it's going to have a high search volume. It's also going to have high competition. Now, because it's so broad, it's less qualified. So restaurant near me, does that mean they want to go to a pizza place? Do they want steak? Do they want Mexican food? Do they want Italian? They don't know yet. Versus a long tail example, which is a steak restaurant near me that has an early bird special. Now, this is very specific. So they really know what they're looking for. It was all about finding those long tail terms, terms that were very specific, didn't have huge search volume, but the person was very far along in their buying process. So you would have tons of these very specific terms that you didn't have to pay a lot for that converted fairly high. So those are long tail keywords. So a couple more definitions I want to touch upon today is abbreviations. I'm not a big fan of using abbreviations, but I think a lot of people love using abbreviations for a ton of reasons. So it's very important to understand what these abbreviations are. So I put together a handful of abbreviations that I think are used a lot, and not everybody knows specifically what they mean. So the first abbreviation that I see used all the time is KPI, or key performance indicator. Now, what is a KPI, or a key performance indicator? That's basically that number, or whatever you're measuring, that will illustrate the results that you got. What's that number that you look at that you can say, hey, things went well or things didn't go well? And a KPI could be whatever you define. So in email, it could be your open rates, could be your click-through rates, could be your delivery rates. You define it. In paid advertising, it could be, click-through rates of your ads. It could be revenue generated from sales. It could be a ton of different things. Okay, you define the KPI, or the key performance indicator. But it's basically whatever that metric is that you are then going to judge, hey, this did well, this didn't do well, it did okay, and everywhere in between. So that's a KPI. Another really important abbreviation that's used a lot that I'm always really surprised that clients don't know off the top of their head is CPA, or cost per acquisition. Now, here at LSC Digital, we manage a lot of paid advertising for a lot of different clients, all shapes and sizes, everything from big financial organizations and insurance companies and health insurance companies to e-commerce sites. So people spending thousands of dollars a month on their paid advertising to clients spending hundreds of thousands of dollars a month on paid advertising. And without exception, pretty much across the board, a lot of times when I say, hey, so what's the cost per acquisition? What's that threshold? Where should we really be? Can't really get that answer. So that's basically asking, hey, what's your cost to get whatever action you're looking to happen? So a lot of times that's a customer. What's your cost per acquisition for a customer? What's your cost per acquisition for a lead? What's your cost per acquisition for an email address? And those are very important to understand, because if you're selling a widget for $20 and your profit margin is $7, but your cost per acquisition is $8, yeah, it's great that you got 1,000 sales, but you lost money. So understanding what your cost per acquisition is for those orders is extremely important to calculate profitability. So CPA, cost per acquisition. Another really important abbreviation is CTA, or call to action. Now, a lot of people think a call to action is just those words that are on a button, but call to action means a lot of different things. Call to action could be the subject line. So what's that call to action in that subject line that says to the reader, hey, this email is important, I need to open it? What's that call to action within that email to get them to click through? What's that call to action when they're on the landing page to get them to buy? So call to action isn't just that language on a button. It's what are you saying that is going to lead people to take the action you want them to say. So that's a call to action, or CTA. And then one of the last things is above the fold. So that's an old newspaper term, and this is becoming more and more and more important with search engine marketing, is basically the content appears before the user has to scroll. Now, this relates not just to the SERP pages, as we discussed previously, but it can also really impact your email marketing. You know, most people don't scroll, so it's always important to have your call to action above the fold. And that would be an example here. So this, looking at a SERP, you know, that red line would be below the fold. So anything that's below that red line, I cannot see unless I scroll. And not to harp on it, but if you notice in this SERP result, is that there's only one organic search result above the fold. So all of these somebody paid for, except for that one lone organic search result. So remember, position 0, paid search, organic. Thanks for watching our video. Hope you found it useful. Be sure to check out the rest of our videos on our YouTube channel and keep an eye out for future webinars.